So, very good morning to all of you students. So, today we are going to see our unit number 4, in which we have to understand what exactly we have to learn. So, basically, it gives you the production system in which we can able to understand what type of things we have to learn in the production system, and another one is frame-based system. So, let's start with the one by one, which is nothing but first is a production system. In the production system, we have to understand the concept of knowledge based system. So in that, when I say a knowledge based system, it is nothing but if I want to understand what exactly it is. So basically, a knowledge base is a self-serve customer service which can include information about a product, about a service, or about a topic that helps customers to find the answer so they can solve the problem on their own. So basically, it is nothing but a knowledge base is a set of sentence that describes the words in some formal language, which is nothing but the representation of a particular thing, which is nothing but the particular in the if I'm considering the artificial intelligence system, which is known as a knowledge based system KBS, it tries to synthesize the particular knowledge of a human specialist to aid in decision making. Okay, so in that we have to understand the expert system. So the name because they depends on some expertise, which is nothing but human expertise, where we can consider the example of knowledge based system. So if I want to understand this concept, then there is one most important aspect, or we can say as an example. So the search a particular thing which is to be required in a highest rated article. Okay, so in that if I want to understand this part, then there are two main forms of knowledge based system, or we can consider a knowledge base we can give it as a machine readable, or we can consider as a human readable. Okay, so in the particular intelligence system, so these solutions are interpreted and deducted by a machine, and thus they are less interactive. So human readable knowledge basis stores documents and physical text that humans can access. Okay, so for the purpose we require a domain specific knowledge. So what type of data is included in the knowledge base? This is the most important question we have to ask here. So all the knowledge base shares the valuable information with the customer, which include if I consider the perspective, but the type of data and information you include in it depends on your business basically. So the purpose of creating this particular thing which we require a common type of data which includes a knowledge base. So for example, you consider direction and tips for using particular product or particular services, or we can consider here the example of answering to particular FAQs, or we can consider here video demonstrations or some company information. So these are some businesses also create content that is helpful for general consumers in the industry. So in that, we also want to understand why we need a knowledge base. And the another one is inference based engine. So basically in the inference based engine, which consists of a set of procedure that work upon the representation, or we can consider as a, we can here consider the fact, or we are considering the answering for the particular knowledge based queries. We require some reasoning part, okay, which is nothing but we have to depend on something which is called as a domain independent. So that is to be given in the form of inference, okay, and that is given with for the particular inference engine. So let's move to the next slide. So basically in the automated reasoning system, if I want to consider, then that is to be performed with the help of some theorem which gives me some we can consider as a rule. Okay, and we are considering here some deductive retrieval system, then production system, semantic network, and frames. So when I consider here a simple example, just go back to our consider the part where we have using some knowledge, right? So in that we are discover the knowledge which are subjected to logical rules by the inference engine. So a moral rule might be, we can consider as a triggered by a new facts in the knowledge base. So the process would continue to that particular things where we can use some chaining concept. Okay, so we'll see in the next slide what exactly mean by forward chaining and backward chaining. But here we are considering some inference is going to be add. So there are the two main modalities in which inference engines operate. So basically, the inference engine, if I want to understand this concept, then there is to establish a fact which is related to that particular thing, where we have to understand the forward chaining claims, which is nothing but for the new facts. And we have to just consider one simple example here, where we are using introductory logic part, where we consider that if you are a human, then you are a mortal. Okay, so this can be represented by a pseudocode, that is nothing but rule 1 is nothing but we have to represent with the help of some pseudocode. So human x, which gives me the particular thing which gives me the mortal part. So that is nothing but a rule which is to be get applied for a particular inference. So the inference engine is, we have to consider here, where we have to understand or we have to find any facts in that particular knowledge base. Okay, so up to this we have considering the some reasoning systems. So these are some automated reasoning system which is already available. So we have to consider here deductive retrieval system, production system, which includes a forward chaining model operation. And in if I consider the semantic network, then we have to represent in the form of graphs. So graphical representation of the world, or you can consider here objects or nodes in the graph, that is again considered as a semantic network. Or we can consider the relations, which is nothing but various links we have to provide for a particular relation. And the frames are nothing but we have to representation with the help of some programming, which is nothing object-oriented representation, or some procedure which is to be required of a particular inference. So when I consider the production system, then it will consider some we can consider as a rule. Okay, so but different form of knowledge base in the horn form, which is represent the knowledge base in the, it is to be given in the form of two, which is nothing but a role base which includes rules, and in the consider as a include some facts. So in inference, we have to consider what type of inference we are getting from that particular rule. So basic operation we have to understand here, that we have to first check if the that particular rule is satisfied or not, or we according to that we have to decide the rules to execute. So if that rule is satisfied, then we have to go according to that way. So execute a action in a consequence of that particular rule. So that is nothing but the inference we are getting from the inference engine, which consider the fact. So if I'm considering early inference engine focuses primarily on forward chaining. So these systems were usually implemented in the form of Lisp programming language. So here you can consider Lisp was a frequent platform for early AI research, which is gives me some production development environment, and which appropriate for to the debugging for the complex programs. So a common particular approach in these early days was to be taken an expert system application, and that is to be we can consider the repackage the inference for a particular system. Okay, so in that we have to consider the what type of inference engine used for that particular system as a reusable tool for other researchers, and it could be include for a particular development. And the next part is nothing but working memory. So in that we have to understand, consider the facts, which is nothing but the set of facts, which is nothing but the statements about the world, but also can represent the various data structure. Here the exact syntax or representation of facts may be differ across the different systems. Say for example, we are having predicates which such as red, we are representing that for a particular car, and that car given the number as a 12. So but only some particular ground statement is to be applied for that particular object. So here we have to represent some predicates to represent that particular fact. Okay, so we are representing one particular attributes, what type of attributes are working for that particular fact, or what type of we are considering here objects for the particular fact is going to be applied. So here we have to consider different attributes of which different types we have to consider. And we have to apply some rules where we have to use the conjunction. And in that conjunction, we can consider what type of things we are to given for the production system. So in that, we are considering here one example where the action can be add, action can be remove, or action can be modify the query. So according to that, we have to apply a particular rule for the particular production system. So, as I said, that early inference engines focuses primarily on the forward engine or forward chaining. So these systems were usually implemented in the Lisp programming language. So Lisp was a frequent platform for early AI research due to its strong capability to the symbolic manipulation, and also as an interpreted language is offered productive development environment appropriate to debugging complex problems. And a common approach in these early days was to take an expert system application and repackaging the inference engine used for the system as a reusable tool where the other researchers could use for the development of the other expert system, like that. So say for example, mycin was an early expert system for medical diagnosis, and emycin was an inference engine which is to be used, or we can consider it may be available for other researchers. So which consists of effective procedure produce where the inference engine use an effective procedures and rules by the inference engine is essential in the deducting a correct solution as well as flawless solution. So in case of knowledge base engine, the inference engine acquire and manipulates the knowledge from the knowledge base to arrive at a particular solution. So from that, we can say that this is my final output, or whatever the solution I am getting, I can get that particular we can say particular things which is to be get applied for a particular knowledge. So the case of a rule which is to be based on this particular things which is to be applies the rules which is repeatedly to the facts. Again, we have to consider what type of facts it is, and it is based on the earlier rule applications which maybe adds a new knowledge into the knowledge base required. So which